Okay, good afternoon, all of you. Any questions from last class? And quiz is going to be on Sunday, Sunday 18th, and it's going to be starting at 9 o'clock. You will be receiving your question paper by email as well as by WhatsApp. Okay, and you need to stick with the deadline for submission. Okay, if you have no questions, and please don't start recording or something like that from your end. Okay, and I don't know, class strength is less, it is only 48. Professor Amlan, you are there?
Yeah, there was a clarification last time regarding this crack pattern. I think you can just quickly go through it once again to explain why the cracks are like this.
Okay, you need to please look at these two equations that are given here. Once you know the normal stress, please note that you need to first do structural analysis, get your shear force, bending moment. Based on bending moment, you can calculate normal stress, which is denoted with letter small f here, and shear stress can be obtained once you know the shear force. Please note that these values keep changing both along the length of the beam as well as along the depth of the beam. Okay, so if you want to really develop, if you see any commercial software, I don't know whether you got a chance to look at it or not, and if you analyze a beam, you will see colorful contours given by the softwares. How they plot those contours, they actually calculate the stress values at several points along the length of the beam as well as along the depth of the beam, and then in between they are going to interpolate and give some color coding. So anyway, that is some information related to the colorful plots that you see in software. Basically, to get those contours, you need to calculate bending moment, shear force. So your structural analysis concepts are very, very important. Okay, and they are going to be the foundation for the subsequent things. And if you have some kind of weakness or some deficiency in understanding or in analyzing simple structural members, you need to strengthen that. So once you get the flexural stress or the normal stress, once you get the shear stress, you can calculate principal stresses, major principal stress, minor principal stress at various locations along the length of the beam as well as depth of the beam. Also at those locations, you can also calculate your the direction of principal stresses or principal planes. And your crack, the orientation of cracks can be explained using this relation. Okay, and you can see here tan 2 theta, theta is nothing but it's an inclination of your principal plane with respect to the horizontal direction. Okay, and also that helps us to get an idea about the direction of crack. And this theta is going to depend on the ratio of this shear stress to the bending stress or shear stress to the normal stress. And if you take a simply supported beam subjected to some, let's assume, uniformly distributed load, and you know for that simple case, you know bending moment is going to be maximum at the center and bending moment is going to be 0 at the supports for simply supported case. And whereas shear force is going to be maximum at the supports and it's going to be 0 at the mid span if it is simply supported subjected to uniformly distributed load. For that simple case, okay, looking at the ratio of the shear stress to the normal stress at two key points. What are the two key points? At the supports and close to the supports. At the support means close to the supports and close to the midspan. Close to the midspan, your normal stress is going to dominate and shear stress is almost equal to 0. And so taking this numerator to 0, you can find what is theta value. And last class somebody already did that, and theta is going to be actually 0 degrees. And what is the plane which is perpendicular to 0 plane? If theta is 0, this dashed line is actually nothing but a plane which is perpendicular to this here the solid line, or this diagonal is showing, this diagonal is showing whatever is shown here, that is major principal stress. And stress is acting like this. That means it is trying to pull this diagonal in opposite directions. So any tearing or crack is going to be formed along this direction. That's why it is written here diagonal tension. So along this plane you are going to have tension. When theta is equal to 0, this plane is going to be at 90 degrees. So at the midspan, approximately the orientation of crack originating at the originating point, orientation of crack is going to be at 90 degrees, or it's going to be perpendicular to the longitudinal direction of the beam or length of the beam. And when you come close to the support, your shear stress is going to be dominating, and this is going to be normal stress is going to be almost equal to 0. So when F tends to 0, 2 theta, tan 2 theta tends to infinity, and that corresponds to theta is equal to 45 degrees. If theta is equal to 45 degrees, this line is also going to be at 45 degrees. This line, which is shown as diagonal tension, that's also going to be at 45 degrees, close to the supports. So if at all crack is going to be developed close to the supports, it's going to be at an angle approximately 45 degrees. And please note that these equations are well documented, or you must have studied as a part of your mechanics of materials course. And there, these equations are developed for homogeneous sections, assuming beam to be homogeneous, isotropic. You please see the assumptions in your mechanics of materials before you develop these equations, okay? But still, using this equation, we can get a rough, or we can give a rough explanation about the orientation of cracks, okay? This is what we discussed in the last class. So whatever I explained to you orally, that is what is actually depicted in this figure. A simply supported beam is shown, okay? And depending on the crack orientation, this entire beam can be divided into 3 regions. Region 1 is flexural, or in this region, normal stress is going to dominate. Shear stress is going to be almost 0. And region 2, you have combination of normal stress and shear stress. And in this region, it's going to be shear dominant region. So in region 1, what kind of cracks you will be seeing? Flexural cracks. Cracks which are almost perpendicular to the length of the beam. Originating perpendicular to the length of the beam. And as you move away from this region, or as you move a little bit far from the midspan, since the shear is also going to come into picture, shear also is going to have significant magnitude. So the crack, instead of 90 degrees, it starts having some inclination with respect to the the longitudinal direction of the beam. That's why you can see these cracks slightly inclined. And when you come to this region, region 3, or this region 2 cracks, it's a combination of flexure and shear cracks, flexure shear cracks. Region 3 is going to be shear dominant. If it is shear dominant, your crack orientation, just now I explained to you, it's going to be almost 45 degrees. Okay, bending, normal stress due to bending is going to be almost 0. And in this region, you will be seeing cracks like this. And these cracks are diagonal tension cracks, or these cracks are almost close to 45 degrees, or you can also say shear cracks. Okay, any questions? So this is how
I'm just adding some information. See, the flexural cracks start from the soffit of the beam for a simply supported beam, whereas the diagonal cracks, you see that they are starting from around the neutral axis, because that's where the shear is maximum. And based on the diagonal crack only, the concept of inclined bars for stirrups or bent up bars are used. But for convenience, typically we use vertical stirrups. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? In addition to this, there is another a measure or a quantity which based on which you can get an idea about the type of cracks. That also will look at it for completeness. Okay, that is what is called it is based on what is called shear span. Shear span is nothing but it's going to be ratio of your bending moment to the shear force. That's what we are going to look at. So our entire this orientation of crack is going to depend on the ratio of normal stress, and here a Greek letter symbol tau is used for shear. Please note that I already mentioned to you, I have taken this material from different sources, so slightly you need to bear with these notations. As long as you understand what this symbol stands for, they convey the intended explanation. Okay, so this is normal stress. F is normal stress. In the previous slide, Q is used, and in some other locations a small v is also used, or you can also use this tau. Tau is Greek letter. Okay, so F divided by tau, or the ratio of normal stress to the shear stress, can be written in this form. And how this is obtained, I will explain you. What is normal stress, or this stress due to bending? It is bending moment divided by the section modulus. And section modulus for a rectangular section, it's going to be BD square divided by 6. So F is equal to, actually it's 6. You please take a note of it in your notebook. M is equal, or F is equal to M divided by Z. For rectangular section, Z is BD square divided by 6. So F is going to be 6M divided by BD square. So that is F. And what about tau? As per the code, nominal shear stress or average shear stress. What is tau? Tau is nothing but shear force V divided by BD. Okay, and here that is what is written. You can see bending stress, you have this numerical value 6M divided by BD square. So instead of if it is some other section, it's going to be some other constant. Okay, so that's why instead of numerical value, some A1 is used. A1 is A1 M divided by BD square. And also depending on the there is the cross-sectional dimensions and other things, you can have some other constant before this V divided by BD appended to this. So that's why for generality, A1, A2 are also included here. Finally, this A1, A2, this is these constants will actually be removed, and the ratio of bending stress to the shear stress or normal stress to the shear stress is going to be proportional to this quantity M divided by VD. I hope you are following. This ratio of this normal stress to the shear stress is going to be proportional to bending moment divided by shear force multiplied by D, effective depth. And what is this? What is this quantity? That is what is explained here. Okay. And this M divided by V, there is some other quantity which is defined. M divided by D is actually defined as some other quantity. That is what is given here, explanation. For a beam subjected to concentrated load, the ratio M divided by V at critical section subjected to maximum V is expressed by a distance denoted with small a called shear span between the support and the load. So let's take a simply supported beam like this, subjected to 2-point loads. These 2-point loads are at a distance, at some distance, okay, at some distance from the support. And then if you try to draw the bending moment and shear force diagram for this, shear force diagram is going to be like this, bending moment diagram is going to be like this. For this case, simply supported beam subjected to 2 concentrated loads equidistant from the supports on either side. For that case, bending moment diagram is this, shear force diagram is this. You agree with this? And now what is the shear span? So that is what is given here. For a beam subjected to concentrated load, the ratio M divided by V at critical section subjected to maximum. Here in this portion, shear is 0, shear stress or shear force is 0, and shear force is going to be maximum here. So this is the critical section. This is the critical section. So the distance of the critical section from the support, distance called shear span between the support and the load, that distance is going to be same as M divided by V. You go back to your structural analysis and check. Okay, what is this distance? This distance here, this bending moment. Look at this. The bending moment value at this point is going to be, it's going to be this reaction, which is going to be shear force. Shear force here is reaction. Shear force is constant in this region. So shear force everywhere is equal to this reaction. 2 concentrated loads. So W is going to be the reaction here. W is going to be reaction here, provided they are equidistant. Okay. So shear force divided by bending moment, or shear force multiplied by shear span, is going to be your bending moment. And that distance is what is the shear span. So if you define shear span like this, then this relation can be written in this manner. You can see this equation. The ratio of bending stress or normal stress to the shear stress is going to be proportional to shear span divided by effective depth. The diagonal tension failure, that is shear failure, is function of ratio AV divided by D. What is this AV? It's nothing but ratio of bending moment to the shear force. That is shear span to effective depth ratio. So your failure pattern is also going to be dependent on the shear span to effective depth ratio. For some typical ranges, the failure pattern is given. and rest of the explanation is all self-explanatory. Any questions here? So the point I want to make to you is the ratio of normal stress to the shear stress is going to be proportional to shear span divided by effective depth. How this is obtained is coming from here. And another important thing that you need to make a note is shear span is nothing but ratio of bending moment to the shear force. Okay, so depending on AV shear span to depth ratio, the failure of beams can be categorized in this manner. When AV divided by D is less than 1, you will be seeing or you will be observing this kind of splitting or compression failure, which usually happens in deep beams due to arching action. And when shear span to effective depth ratio is within this range, it's going to be compression, shear compression or shear tension failure. And effective depth or this shear span to effective depth ratio, if it is between 2.8 and 6, it's going to be diagonal tension failure. And how these failures looks like, some schematics are shown. You can go through them. Okay. So this shear span to effective depth ratio is also important. Depending on the magnitude or the ranges of that quantity, you can explain what kind of failure that is going to happen in beams. And more details you may be studying as a part of your advanced courses. Okay. So this is just some additional information.
Sir, sir, is this proportionality only for simply supported beam or any general support, sir?
Professor Amlan?
See, the moment to the shear ratio is applicable at any section of a beam. That means even if it's a continuous beam, depending upon the moment divided by the shear, that ratio dictates whether the flexural stresses will cause cracking and failure or the shear stresses is going to do that. For explanation, it is being explained in terms of simply supported beam, but the concept is applicable to other cases also.
Is it clear? It's basically your failure is going to depend on, or failure pattern is going to depend on the ratio of normal stress to the shear stress, that ratio, or it is nothing but M divided by V times effective depth, or if you want to write it in terms of shear span, it is a shear span to effective depth. Okay, same thing you are trying to express in different manner.
And of course, the failure also depends on the amount of reinforcement that is provided. That is another issue. This is being explained as if the reinforcements are proper, then what is the tendency of failure?
And this is for this is shear reinforcement is not provided here, only flexural reinforcement. Okay. Any questions? Anyway, I think at least a few of you are paying attention. I hope rest of the people, even though they are keeping silent, they are paying attention here, and you are asking good questions. Anyway, now let's understand how this shear failure mechanism, how it's going to happen. Please note that shear basically means it's getting the entire member is you are trying to cut it into two pieces. Okay, it's going to get cut into two pieces. So here a portion of beam is shown. A portion of beam is shown here. You please take a note of it. Okay, a portion of beam is shown here, and for explanation of this, like now here basically what we want to understand here is how much is going to be the contribution from each of the various mechanisms for contributing to the shear strength of the beam. What are the various mechanisms that are contributing to the shear strength of the beam? So to understand that, this figure is actually shown here. Here a beam portion of the beam is taken and a failure plane is shown here, and a portion of that failed portion is also shown here, and free body diagram is drawn for the both portions. For both portions, free body diagram is drawn. You please take a note of it. Okay? And please note that this is part of beam. Another section is there, another part is there. That part is not shown. Imagine this, if you want to complete this structural member, it is simply supported beam having flexural reinforcement, having the tensile reinforcement. Please note that so far, whatever design you studied, you know how to design for tensile reinforcement or flexural reinforcement to take care of flexion. So that is what is shown here.
See, one important thing is, see, when we studied flexure, then the cracked section was perpendicular to the axis of the beam. But now you can see that an inclined cracked section is being considered. This is the effect of shear, that the crack is getting inclined, and hence the cracked section is also being considered to be inclined.
Okay. And if there are no questions, I hope you are taking note of it. If you are not taking note of it, you please take a note of this figure. It nicely explains you the contribution of various components, and also this explanation is going to help you to understand table 19 of IS 456. Okay, so let me explain. I told you this is a portion of beam, the other portion is not shown, and let's assume we are loading the simply supported beam. As you keep on increasing the load, first what is going to happen is initially the load is going to be resisted by the uncracked concrete. Initially beam is going to be uncracked. So entire this imagine as simply supported beam subjected to some point loads or distributed load. I am looking at a section. At that section, I know what is going to be shear force. I know what is going to be bending moment. So initially, the beam is uncracked. So where its shear strength is actually coming? Shear strength of the beam is coming from uncracked concrete portion. And once the load exceeds that value, crack is going to be formed. So now concrete actually got cracked. But please note that concrete is made up of aggregates. And even the first contribution is uncracked concrete. Uncracked concrete shear strength is going to depend on its grade of concrete. Based on that, your uncracked shear strength is going to depend. So once the load exceeds that value, concrete is going to crack. But please note that when concrete gets cracked, aggregates are there. Aggregates, what they are going to do is, the crack plane is going to be intersected by those aggregates. Aggregates are going to offer some resistance. So some resistance is going to be offered by the aggregates. So here, for explanation purpose, it is in this figure, it is depicted, or different symbols are shown. VC is nothing but, or here it is shown as VCY or VC prime Y. Anyway, this portion is nothing but to show that it is from the uncracked concrete portion. And once the crack is formed, aggregate interlock is going to be there. So some contribution is going to come to the strength from aggregate interlock. Okay. And this also, we will see. So one contribution is from uncracked portion, and another portion is going to come from aggregate interlock. And you keep on loading. So once the stress that is coming exceeds that value also, then crack is going to be formed. But Still you have this tensile reinforcement. Till now tensile reinforcement has not come into picture. So now whatever additional load you are applying, since the crack is formed and also it exceeded the aggregate interlock capacity, and now next one to resist is this reinforcement. Whatever tensile reinforcement or flexural reinforcement that you provided, that's going to resist. So now with this explanation, let me summarize. So the contribution to the shear strength for a beam, so far whatever you design, only with the tensile reinforcement or flexural reinforcement, the shear strength contribution is going to come from uncracked concrete portion and aggregate interlock and the tensile steel that is provided. So now if you go back and see your IS 456 or let's see SP16. SP16 is giving you an equation for shear strength of concrete, design shear strength of concrete. And based on this only your table 19 of IS 456 is developed. In this equation, this design shear strength is going to be a function of grade of concrete, FCK, and also percentage of tensile steel, which is coming through this beta. Just now we discussed when there is no shear reinforcement or when you design beam only for flexure, the contribution to the shear strength is coming from uncracked concrete, aggregate interlock. Those two contributions are actually dumped. Those two contributions are actually dumped in the contribution from the grade of concrete. Okay, so aggregate interlock and also the uncracked concrete portion, they are going to depend on the grade of concrete. The other contribution is coming from your percentage of tensile steel, or just now we discussed, it's going to depend on the tensile steel that you provided. So this is basically, this equation is an empirical equation. Okay, empirical equation based on some tests and other things, experiments, and the basis for this is what I try to explain to you now using this figure. Okay, anyway, let's read this whatever is given here. The type of cracks develop and the failure modes are given in the previous figures. Okay, now let's see this one. I think this sentence we can skip. The transverse shear force in flexure shear or flexure shear mode is generally resisted by the following major mechanisms. What are the major mechanisms? Transverse shear force is going to be resisted by shear resistance of uncracked portion of concrete, and vertical component is going to be resisted, or a vertical component of interface shear or aggregate interlock, and also dowel force due to the tensile reinforcement. In addition to these three, if you provide shear reinforcement beyond, once all this gives up, once uncracked portion gives up, once aggregate interlock contribution gives up, then dowel force is going to come into picture from the tensile reinforcement that you provided. And if you keep on increasing the load, even once this is exceeded, then if you had provided shear reinforcement, then additional load is going to be taken by this shear reinforcement. So your shear strength of the beam is going to be contributed by all these four. Okay, so far we have not looked at this one. In today's class, before we end, we will look at this one. Any questions? So all these three parts, that is uncracked portion, aggregate interlock, dowel force, all these are dumped and given to you in the form of design shear strength in table 19, which is function of grade of concrete and percentage of tensile steel. And that is denoted with letter tau C. Tau C is a design shear strength of concrete. So now let me proceed further if you don't have any questions. So please take a note of this figure. Please take a note of this figure. This portion, this figure B. And here a portion of beam is shown. And for generality, the stirrups are shown to be inclined at theta angle. And spacing of the stirrups is denoted with SV. SV is spacing of stirrups. Okay. And here this inclined line. This inclined line is nothing but your the crack, shear flexural crack. Okay. This is the inclination of this crack is at theta degrees. This crack. And this is inclination of your the stirrups. Inclination of stirrup is denoted with this alpha. Let this Greek symbol alpha. So please take a note of this figure. This figure helps you to understand whatever equations for shear reinforcement design those are given in page 73 of your IS 456. And the first here, this first figure A, it is actually a general figure which is showing vertical stirrups, okay, and longitudinal reinforcement. And this figure, the figure which is shown here, second part of B is nothing but when alpha is equal to 90 degrees, it degenerates to this one. So what I suggest is you please take a note of this figure. And D is the effective depth. Effective depth is from the concrete, extreme concrete, which is in compression, to the centroid of the tensile reinforcement, CG of the tensile reinforcement. I hope you have taken this figure. And what is the capacity of this stirrup? What is the capacity of this stirrup? That is what is written here. If you want to find what is the strength of the steel bar, how do you get it? Strength of steel bar is 0.8 as per IS 456, 0.87 F5 multiplied by area of steel, area of cross section of that bar. Same thing here, 0.87 F5 ASV. ASV is, it depends on how many legs you have. Please note that this figure is drawn in the plane of the board. Actually, depending on the stirrup, you may have another leg on the other side. So, what is the cross-sectional area of all the legs in this plane, along this plane? Whatever area of steel of all the stirrups, cross-sectional area of all the stirrups legs. If it is one-legged stirrup, then ASV is cross-sectional area of this one leg of the stirrup. If it is two-legged stirrup, it is going to be cross-sectional area of one leg multiplied by 2. So 0.87 SV, ASV is going to be the strength of this stirrup. Okay. Now, please make a note here. Theta is inclination angle of the crack. Theta is inclination of angle of the crack, and alpha is your inclination of stirrups. Inclination of stirrups with respect to the horizontal axis. Okay, theta and alpha. And now, if this is the crack, please note that what is happening when you have shear failure, the beam is splitting into two parts. Here, beam is splitting into two parts. How do you ensure that this splitting is not going to happen? You can put these two parts together and tie them. Okay, Basically, that is what we are doing here. We are trying to tie the two parts. This is the separation along which these two parts are going to separate because of this crack, which is at an angle theta. I don't want that separation to happen, so I'm tying it. The tying can be achieved by using inclined stirrups or vertical stirrups. So how I am tying them? How I am tying these two parts? By providing some additional steel which is actually crossing this crack. Please note that which is this stirrup is crossing this crack. So I need to find how many stirrups are there. How many stirrups are there in the portion which is actually this crack is actually passing. This crack is at an angle theta, and effective depth is d. Effective depth is d. Okay, and the stirrup angle is alpha. So I need to look at how many stirrups are going to be there over this distance. How many stirrups are going to be there over this distance? Those stirrups are going to be effective in tying this, or when this beam is trying to develop a crack which is at an angle theta. Those stirrups are going to help me to tie these two parts together. Okay, so what is this distance? What is this distance? This from this triangle, if this angle is theta, if this angle is alpha, this distance and this effective depth is d, this distance is going to be d cot theta plus cot alpha. Over that distance, how many number of stirrups are there? Over that distance, how many number of stirrups are there? So how do I get it? If I know spacing of the stirrups, this divided by SV is going to give me how many stirrups are there. And the resistance of each of the stirrup is given by this. So total resistance that is offered by this shear reinforcement, which is at an angle alpha, assuming the crack to be developed at theta, is given by 0.87 Fy ASV. That is going to be the resistance offered by one of the stirrup, depending on how many legs it has. That is taken care here in ASV. This is going to be the resistance that is offered by one of the stirrup. And how many stirrups are there? D cot theta plus cot alpha divided by SV. So many stirrups are there. That many number of stirrups multiplied by this is going to give me total resistance offered by the stirrups over this distance when the crack is trying to develop at an angle theta. Okay, so if you understood that, so that is the equation that is given here. That is the equation that is given in page 73. But there is a small difference here. In the equation that we looked at, we have cot alpha plus cot theta. Anyway, we'll see that. Maybe let me proceed further, then you will actually be able to get this equation from the equation that we looked at. Any questions here? So how many stirrups are there? That is going to be d cot theta plus cot alpha divided by SV. Strength of each stirrup is 0.87 Fy ASV. So total strength of all these stirrups is going to be this number of stirrups, this divided by this, multiplied by this. That is going to be your total strength. Okay. So here, VUS. VUS is nothing but this is the notation that is given in IS 456. That is what is used. What is the resistance that is generated because of the shear reinforcement? VUS. That is given by vertical component of tension per stirrup. That is 0.87 Fy ASV. Vertical component. Please note that this component here, whatever is shown, it is inclined. So you need to consider vertical component. So you take the vertical component of it. That's going to be sine alpha. Okay. Vertical component of tension per stirrup. This vertical component word and this sine alpha I forgot in the previous explanation. You need to consider vertical component. And how many number of stirrups? I explained to you in detail. And usually the crack, we assume it to be at 45 degrees. So taking theta is equal to 45 degrees. Taking theta is equal to 45 degrees. This equation, this is more general equation. Applicable for a general crack which is at an angle theta with respect to the horizontal axis. So taking theta is equal to 45 degrees, this equation degenerates to this one. And this is what is given in IS 456. This is what is given in IS 456 for inclined stirrups. And please note that whether it is inclined stirrup or bent up bars. Bent up bars are nothing but whatever tensile reinforcement that you provided. So at some portion you can actually bend it up. That bending you can bend it up at an angle alpha. So then that resistance also is going to be similar to this one. So this is applicable for even bent up bars as well as inclined stirrups. Okay. And if alpha is equal to alpha is nothing but inclination of the stirrup with respect to the horizontal axis. If it is vertical stirrup, alpha is going to be 90 degrees. In that case, this equation reduces to this one. We just substitute alpha is equal to 90. This is going to be 0. This is going to be 1. So this becomes this one. Okay. And shear resistance of bent up bars can also be obtained from equation this one 6.18. When series of single or parallel bent up bars are provided at regular intervals in the manner of inclined stirrups. Okay. However, when a single bar or single group of parallel bars are bent up at the same location at an angle alpha, vertical component of total tension in these bars is given by this one. Only one bar is bent up. Only one bar is bent up. One bar means here. Please note that here this quantity is actually giving you number of bars. If only one bar is there, then this equation reduces to this one. And this is the vertical component. Or this one. Sorry. This equation, this part is nothing but number of steps. But if the number of steps is only one or only one bent up bar is there, then the contribution is going to be only this. Or this becomes 1. So this reduces to this. So these are the equations that are given in IS 456. I hope with this explanation, it's going to be clear to you how these equations are obtained. This is for vertical stirrup. Vertical stirrup is nothing but substituting alpha is equal to 90 degrees. You are going to get this one. Okay. And if you want for a single bar, it's going to be 0.87 Fy ASV and vertical component, that's by sine alpha. Okay. And please note that these equations are this equation. Let's say this equation or this equation. You can write it instead of D here, you can write it as VUS divided by D. VUS divided by D is equal to 0.87 FY ASV divided by SV. Similar to that, based on that rearrangement, if you see table 62 of SP16, SP16 table 62 is giving you for vertical stirrups for FE 250 and FE 415 steels. Okay, what is VUS divided by D? What is the shear strength, shear resistance that is generated when you provide vertical stirrups as a ratio of the effective depth of the beam? What it's going to be function of? What it's going to be function of? VUS divided by D is going to be function of grade of steel, area of steel, and spacing of the bars. ASV is nothing but area of cross section, of these stirrups, depending on the number of legs of the stirrup. Okay. So here, this equation is actually developed in the form of a table. In table 62, it's giving VUS divided by D for two-legged stirrups. That you need to keep in mind. It's going to be function of spacing. Obviously, we noted it's function of FY, it's function of spacing, as well as the size of the bar. This is 6, 8, 10, 12. These are the diameter of the bars. Diameter in mm. Similarly, this is for bent up bars. Bent up bar for single bar. That's why that equation is given in IS 456. That is developed in the form of a table here. Depending on the inclination of the bent up bar, 45 degrees, 60 degrees. And table 62, this is table 62 and this is table 63. Table 62 for vertical stirrups, table 63 for bent up bars. For inclined bars, for other inclination, if at all, we usually will not, we usually go for vertical stirrups. But if you come up with some other value of inclination of bar, then the resistance can be, the resistance that is offered by such kind of bars can be, such kind of stirrups can be estimated using this relation. Any questions? Professor Amlan, you want to add something?
See, one important assumption here is that the crack forms at 45 degrees. Now, in some other codes, you may find that they are allowing you to use other angles of the crack. But IS 456 considers the crack to be at 45 degrees.
Okay, before we close, just a few points. Let's make a note, then we'll close. A minimum shear reinforcement, IS code is saying even if your nominal shear stress is less than the design shear strength, you need to provide minimum shear reinforcement. Why that is required? To prevent the following types of failures. Please note that shear failure is actually undesirable because it's a brittle failure. So that's the reason why code is actually specifying to use minimum shear reinforcement. Anyway, let's go through these points. Brittle shear failure cracks which can occur without shear reinforcement. To avoid that, minimum shear reinforcement is insisted by the code. Sudden failure due to bursting of concrete cover and bond to the tension reinforcements. Shear reinforcement help to hold main reinforcements while concreting, forming an effective cage. So shear reinforcement also, like you can, it helps us to form a cage, and then you can actually lift this cage and put in the mold and then do the casting. And formation of cracks due to thermal and shrinkage stresses are minimized. Shear reinforcement act as effective ties for compression steel. This is for columns, okay, and make them effective. So that is the reason minimum shear reinforcement is insisted by the code. And in the next class, we'll see some examples. All the examples that are given are simple examples, trying to demonstrate how to make use of these three equations to get the shear reinforcement, as well as table 62, 63 of SP60. Okay, any questions? So if there are no questions, let's just 1 second, let me take attendance, then we'll stop. Okay. If there are no questions, let's meet on, or I will send you by sharp 9 o'clock on 18th. And you please be attentive and try to submit it before the deadline. Okay. Thank you.